Have you ever wondered about the very nature of reality? Or questioned what's truly real in a world filled with distractions, opinions, and constant noise? How do we know what we know? And how do we even know that we know what we think we know? What if everything you've ever been told about the world, the mind, and even yourself is open to doubt? Well, today, we're diving into one of the most profound philosophical journeys ever undertaken, a journey that reshaped the way we think about existence, knowledge, and truth. We're talking about none other than René Descartes, the father of modern philosophy. Now, you might be thinking, Descartes? Didn't he live centuries ago? Why is his philosophy relevant today? Well, let me tell you. Descartes' ideas are not just academic relics locked away in dusty books, they're more alive than ever. And in a world dominated by technology, rapid advancements, and a constant flood of information, understanding the core of Descartes' philosophy is crucial. Today, we'll explore Descartes' journey into radical skepticism, where he questioned everything, yes, everything, in order to find that one thing that could never be doubted. We'll uncover his most famous declaration, Cogito Ergo Sum, I think, therefore I am, and how it changed the course of intellectual history. We'll also dive into his concept of mind-body dualism, the role of reason, and the moral philosophy that continues to influence us today. By the end of this video, you won't just understand Descartes' philosophy, you'll be able to apply these powerful concepts to your own life. Whether you're dealing with self-doubt, making tough decisions, or simply trying to find your place in an increasingly complex world, Descartes' ideas will give you the mental tools to navigate it all. Before we jump in, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into philosophy, psychology, and personal development. And if you're enjoying the content, don't forget to hit the super thanks button to show your support. Your contributions help keep this channel alive and kicking. All right, let's get into it. Grab a seat, because what we're about to uncover will change the way you see the world forever. René Descartes, the father of modern philosophy, revolutionized the way we think about existence, knowledge, and the nature of reality. In a world where distractions are as overwhelming as ever, where we're bombarded by information from social media, news, and the constant noise of daily life, Descartes' questions still resonate with striking relevance. How do we truly know what is real? How do we reconcile the world we see around us with the thoughts and emotions we experience in our minds? These are questions that go to the very core of our existence, and they were central to Descartes' philosophical journey. His work continues to shape how we understand ourselves and the world. At the heart of Descartes' philosophical inquiries lies a deceptively simple yet profoundly deep question. How do we know what we know? It is not enough to ask, what do we know? Because, as Descartes demonstrated, our knowledge is often tainted by doubts and uncertainties. In fact, the very concept of doubt became the starting point for his exploration of knowledge and existence. Descartes' approach was radically skeptical. He questioned everything, from the existence of the external world to the certainty of his own body. His search for a firm foundation upon which knowledge could be built ultimately led him to his famous conclusion, Cogito Ergo Sum, I think, therefore I am. This statement became the cornerstone of his philosophy, offering a certainty so undeniable that it could not be doubted. Descartes' method of radical doubt, where he systematically doubted everything, helped him reach this conclusion and built the foundation for modern epistemology. The philosophical implications of Cogito Ergo Sum are vast. It isn't just about acknowledging the existence of the self. It's about the recognition that the act of thinking itself, the process of doubt, is proof of existence. Descartes emphasized that the mind, our capacity for thought, reflection, and doubt, was the most certain aspect of our being. This radical focus on the mind led him to develop a theory of knowledge that placed reason at its center. In an age where the authority of the church and tradition held sway, Descartes' philosophy marked a turning point, making reason and individual thought the ultimate sources of truth. To understand Descartes' philosophy, we must also understand his dualism, the division between the mind and the body. Descartes posited that the mind, or soul, and the body are distinct substances. The body, according to Descartes, is a mechanical system governed by physical laws, while the mind is immaterial and capable of rational thought. This dualism laid the groundwork for much of modern thought on the nature of consciousness, identity, and the self. But Descartes didn't just stop at asking whether we exist or not. He wanted to understand what the relationship between the mind and the body might be, and how these two substances could interact with each other. While this division between mind and body might seem like common sense today, it was a radical idea in Descartes' time. His thinking influenced countless philosophers and scientists, shaping the trajectory of modern philosophy and science. It's important to note, however, that Descartes' mind-body dualism was not without its criticisms. Later thinkers, such as the French philosopher Baruch Spinoza and the British philosopher Gilbert Ryle, would argue against the separation of mind and body, suggesting that the mind and body are not separate entities but are intricately connected. However, Descartes' dualism was groundbreaking, and even today, the mind-body problem remains a central issue in philosophy and cognitive science. One of the central themes in Descartes' work is the idea of radical skepticism. He took skepticism to its extreme, doubting everything, including the existence of the external world. Descartes famously asked whether the physical world around him could be an illusion created by a malicious demon, a being with the power to deceive him about everything he knew. This radical skepticism is what led Descartes to his method of doubt, where he stripped away all things that could be subject to doubt until he arrived at the one thing that could not be doubted: the existence of the self as a thinking being. This became his famous conclusion, Cogito Ergo Sum. In the face of doubt, the one thing that could not be doubted was his own existence as a thinking subject. This was the ultimate foundation upon which he could build all other knowledge. The importance of Descartes' skepticism cannot be overstated. It was not a mere intellectual exercise or a way of casting doubt on everything. Rather, it was a method designed to find something certain and indubitable, something upon which all knowledge could be grounded. This approach laid the foundation for the scientific method and modern philosophy by making reason and self-reflection the starting points of inquiry. For Descartes, the mind became the central place where knowledge was constructed, and the ability to doubt, question, and reason was what set humans apart from animals and machines. Descartes' skepticism also had profound implications for the way we think about perception. If we can doubt the existence of the external world, how do we know that what we see, hear, and feel is actually real? This question remains a central concern in modern philosophy, especially in discussions about perception and reality. Today, in an era of virtual reality and artificial intelligence, these questions seem even more pressing. How do we know what is real when our experiences can be manipulated or distorted by technology? Descartes' skepticism offers a framework for understanding how we navigate the uncertainty of our experiences and how we can strive for certainty in a world full of illusions. But Descartes wasn't just interested in epistemology, he also tackled metaphysics. His dualism led him to consider the nature of reality itself. If the mind and body are separate substances, then how does the immaterial mind interact with the physical body? This problem of interaction between mind and body has haunted philosophers ever since. Descartes proposed that the pineal gland, a small structure in the brain, was the site where the mind and body connected. However, this explanation did not satisfy later thinkers, and the problem of mind-body interaction remains one of the most challenging questions in philosophy and neuroscience. Descartes' work also had profound implications for theology. He argued that the existence of God could be known with certainty through reason. For Descartes, the idea of a perfect, benevolent God provided a foundation for trust in the world and in human reasoning. Without a perfect God, Descartes believed that our perceptions and reason would be unreliable, since we would have no guarantee that our thoughts and perceptions were aligned with the truth. In this sense, Descartes' philosophy is deeply intertwined with his theological views, although it was also an attempt to separate philosophy from religious dogma and establish a more personal, rational approach to understanding the universe. In modern times, Descartes' influence can be seen everywhere, from the way we think about consciousness and personal identity to the development of scientific thought. His focus on reason, skepticism, and the mind-body problem has shaped everything from cognitive science to artificial intelligence. Descartes' legacy can also be seen in the fields of psychology, where the nature of consciousness and the relationship between the brain and the mind remain central topics of inquiry. Today, questions about the nature of reality and the self continue to shape our understanding of the world. We no longer live in a world where religious or metaphysical explanations are the primary sources of knowledge. Instead, we rely on reason, scientific inquiry, and philosophical reflection to understand the nature of existence. Descartes' skepticism also paved the way for later philosophers, such as Immanuel Kant, who would take up the question of how we can know the world outside our minds. Kant's Copernican revolution in philosophy argued that the mind plays a crucial role in shaping our perception of the world, echoing Descartes' emphasis on the centrality of the mind in the process of knowing. Kant, however, took Descartes' ideas further, arguing that while we can never truly know the thing in itself, we can have knowledge of the world as it appears to us through the lens of our mental faculties. One of the more fascinating aspects of Descartes' philosophy is its emphasis on the power of doubt and its relevance to modern life. In a world filled with misinformation, confusion, and competing ideologies, Descartes' method of skepticism offers a powerful tool for navigating the complexities of contemporary existence. The ability to question, to doubt, and to reason critically is more important than ever. Descartes challenges us to be mindful of our beliefs and to examine them rigorously. This is not just a philosophical exercise, it is a practical approach to living in a world that constantly presents us with uncertainty. The legacy of René Descartes is evident not only in the history of philosophy, but also in the way we live our lives today. His emphasis on reason, skepticism, and the mind-body problem continues to shape how we think about ourselves, the world, and our place within it. In an age where the boundaries between the real and the virtual are increasingly blurred, Descartes' work reminds us to question the nature of reality itself, to reflect deeply on the mind's role in shaping our experiences, and to embrace reason as a guiding force in our search for truth. Descartes may have started his philosophical journey by doubting everything, but in the process, he gave us the tools to build a more solid understanding of ourselves and the world around us. René Descartes' philosophy fundamentally reshaped the way we think about the relationship between the mind and the body. His theory of dualism posits that the mind and body are distinct substances, the body being physical, composed of matter, and the mind being non-material, responsible for thought, consciousness, and reason. This division, though centuries old, continues to be a cornerstone of both philosophical inquiry and scientific research today. In his Meditations on First Philosophy, Descartes lays out this distinction, claiming that the mind is a thinking, non-extended substance, whereas the body is an extended, material substance that operates according to physical laws. This dualistic view presents the mind as something separate from the body, an immaterial essence that cannot be explained in terms of physical processes. For Descartes, the body operates within the physical realm, subject to the laws of nature and governed by mechanical principles, while the mind transcends these laws and is not bound by the same physical constraints. This distinction forces us to confront one of the deepest questions in philosophy. If the mind is separate from the body, what is the nature of their interaction? One of the key implications of Descartes' dualism is that the mind does not necessarily need the body to exist. He famously said, "Cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am." This statement reveals the certainty that Descartes places on the thinking self, which exists independently of physical reality. The fact that Descartes can doubt the existence of his body, but still be certain of his own existence as a thinking being, highlights the mind's priority in his philosophy. If you are doubting your own existence, Descartes suggests, you are at least certain that there is a thinker who is doing the doubting. In this way, the mind is both the source of knowledge and the bedrock of our sense of self. However, this notion that the mind exists independently of the body raises numerous questions, especially as we think about the connection between thought and physical action. If the mind is distinct from the body, how do the two interact? Descartes suggested that the point of interaction was the pineal gland, a small organ in the brain, which he believed was where the mind and body communicated. This explanation, however, has been widely criticized and dismissed by later thinkers, as it struggles to account for how an immaterial mind could influence a material body, and vice versa. Even so, Descartes' dualism remains a touchstone for understanding the nature of human existence. In the modern world, where advances in artificial intelligence, AI, cognitive science, and neuroscience are reshaping our understanding of consciousness, Descartes' ideas are being put to the test. Can the mind exist independently of the body in an age where machines seem to be developing minds of their own? If machines can think, learn, and reason, does that suggest that the mind is not exclusively tied to the human brain? And if the mind is not inherently tied to a physical body, what does that mean for our understanding of consciousness and identity? The rise of artificial intelligence and robotics presents a particularly interesting challenge to Descartes' dualism. In recent years, AI systems have become more sophisticated, with some able to mimic human cognitive processes such as learning, decision-making, and even problem-solving. If machines can think in ways that are analogous to the human mind, does that mean the mind is no longer the exclusive domain of human beings? Could a machine with a complex enough algorithm ever be said to possess consciousness or thought? These questions force us to confront the very heart of Descartes' dualism. If the mind can exist independently of the body, could it be instantiated in something other than the human form, perhaps even in a machine? Consider the case of self-driving cars. These vehicles use AI algorithms to process data from sensors and cameras to make decisions about speed, direction, and safety. In some cases, these cars seem to be thinking and making decisions much like a human driver. Could we say that the AI in these vehicles is capable of thought, in the same way that the human mind is? In the context of Descartes' philosophy, this is a fascinating question. If an AI system can make decisions independently, process information, and act on it in real time, does that imply that the mind can be disentangled from the body and realized in something purely mechanical? Of course, Descartes would likely argue that while a machine may simulate thought, it does not possess the same kind of thinking that human beings do. For Descartes, the mind is not just a repository of information or a decision-making engine, it is the seat of consciousness, intentionality, and self-awareness. Machines, no matter how complex, would lack this self-awareness, making them fundamentally different from the human mind. In this sense, Descartes might argue that the mind cannot exist apart from the human brain in the way that he imagined. The mind-body connection is more intimate and complex than dualism might suggest, and no machine, however intelligent, could replicate the human experience of thinking and self-awareness. This brings us to another important aspect of Descartes' dualism, the idea that the body is simply a machine. In his discourse on the method, Descartes likened the body to a complex machine that operates according to natural laws. He viewed the body as an automaton, a mechanical system that responds to stimuli but does not think in the same way that the mind does. This view echoes modern scientific thinking in which the body is understood as a biological system that operates according to physical laws and processes. The body, like any machine, can be studied and understood in terms of its components and how they interact. However, this mechanistic view of the body raises important ethical and philosophical questions. If the body is just a machine, what happens to our understanding of human dignity and the moral status of living beings? Descartes' view has been criticized for reducing the body to mere matter, disregarding the emotional and existential aspects of human life. For instance, if we treat the body as nothing more than a machine, it becomes easier to justify the exploitation or mistreatment of living beings. In the context of AI, this issue becomes even more pressing, as machines become more advanced and capable of simulating thought and emotion. Where do we draw the line between human consciousness and machine consciousness? Does the creation of machines that can mimic human behavior challenge our moral frameworks and the very notion of personhood? Furthermore, Descartes' dualism has implications for the mind-body connection in the realm of mental health. The separation of mind and body suggests that mental and physical health are distinct. Yet modern research shows that the mind and body are deeply intertwined. For instance, Psychological stress can lead to physical health problems like high blood pressure, while physical ailments can impact mental well-being. The rise of mindfulness and mental health practices reflects an increasing understanding that the mind and body cannot be entirely separated. In the context of psychological therapy, modern approaches often combine mental and physical practices, recognizing the holistic nature of human health. Descartes' dualism, with its emphasis on the separation of mind and body, fails to account for the complexity of this relationship. Today, cognitive science and neuroscience have uncovered new layers of understanding about the mind. Studies of brain function have shown that thought processes are deeply tied to neural activity in the brain, suggesting that the mind cannot be entirely separated from the brain's physical processes. Cognitive scientists have begun to investigate how the mind arises from the brain's complex network of neurons and synapses, an area of study that would likely challenge Descartes' strict division between the body and mind. The mind, it seems, is not just a separate, non-material substance, but is intricately connected to the physical structure and activity of the brain. This growing body of knowledge challenges the Cartesian view that the mind is a distinct, non-material entity that operates independently of the body. Despite these challenges, Descartes' dualism still holds significance in our contemporary debates about artificial intelligence, consciousness, and the nature of reality. It forces us to grapple with the possibility that the mind could exist beyond the confines of the body, whether in the form of AI, or even as a disembodied entity in some far-flung future. It also provides a framework for thinking about consciousness and the nature of self-awareness in ways that transcend materialism. Descartes' insistence on the distinctiveness of the mind remains a valuable perspective as we navigate the complexities of modern technology and science. In sum, Descartes' dualism offers a powerful and enduring lens through which to examine the relationship between the body and mind. Though modern science has revealed the deep interconnections between the two, his philosophical framework continues to spark thought-provoking discussions about the nature of consciousness, the mind-body problem, and the future of AI. As technology advances, the questions that Descartes raised centuries ago are as relevant as ever, forcing us to reconsider the boundaries of thought, existence, and what it means to be human. Descartes' view of the mind is foundational to how we understand human cognition and decision-making today. For Descartes, the mind is not a passive recipient of information. Rather, it is an active, dynamic force with distinct faculties that allow us to process, interpret, and engage with the world. These faculties are, in Descartes' philosophy, divided into two primary components: the intellect and volition. Together, they explain the breadth and depth of human thought, choice, and action. The intellect, on one hand, is passive. It allows us to think and understand the world around us. Volition, on the other hand, is active, driving our capacity to choose, to affirm, and to deny. To understand Descartes' conception of the mind more fully, consider a simple scenario. Imagine you are sitting in front of a beautiful painting. The first step in engaging with the painting involves your intellect. It helps you understand the painting, the technique the artist used, the colors chosen, the shapes, and perhaps the historical context of the work. You are processing the sensory data and interpreting what you see. Your intellect allows you to make sense of it. However, your engagement with the painting doesn't stop at understanding it. The next step involves volition, your will. It is your will that determines whether you like the painting, whether it moves you, whether you find it beautiful or distasteful. In this case, your intellect might help you understand the skill and mastery behind the painting, but your volition, your active will, is the force that leads to a personal judgment. You might appreciate the technical mastery but dislike the emotional effect it has on you, or vice versa. Descartes believed that this active power of will was essential to understanding the concept of free will, the capacity to make choices, affirm or deny things, and ultimately shape one's own experience and beliefs. This view of the mind as both rational and active has a profound implication for our understanding of freedom and agency. Descartes believed that we are not merely passive receivers of knowledge and stimuli. We are active participants in shaping our world. Our intellect helps us navigate our experiences, but our will gives us the power to act on these experiences. to make judgments, and to choose our course of action. This distinction between intellect and volition lays the groundwork for Descartes' broader philosophy of freedom. To have a will is to have the ability to choose, and that choice is what constitutes the essence of human freedom. Without volition, Descartes argued, there would be no real freedom or self-determination. One of the enduring questions that Descartes' theory raises is how these faculties interact. How does the intellect influence the will? And how does the will influence the intellect? Descartes' view was that the intellect provides the material, the data and knowledge, while volition acts as the engine, driving the individual's decisions based on that knowledge. The intellect and the will work together, yet they are distinct. The intellect is passive in the sense that it can only work with what is presented to it, while the will is active in that it can initiate choices and actions, regardless of what the intellect presents. This dynamic between intellect and will has relevance beyond the realm of philosophy, as it connects deeply to modern psychology and our understanding of decision-making. Today, psychologists and neuroscientists understand that our choices are influenced not only by our rational mind, but also by our emotions, desires, and subconscious drives. The cognitive processes involved in decision-making are complex and often involve much more than a simple calculation of facts or logic. Emotions and desires, forces that lie beneath the surface of conscious thought, often play a much larger role than we realize. For example, imagine someone walking into a room full of people. They might intellectually know that it's a social event and that they should be friendly, polite, and engaging. Their intellect tells them how to behave in this social context. However, their volition may decide, perhaps subconsciously, that they prefer to sit quietly in the corner, avoiding interaction. This choice is not purely a rational one. It may be influenced by feelings of social anxiety, personal preferences, or past experiences that shape the person's volition. The intellectual understanding of the situation may not align with the will's decision to act differently. This conflict between intellect and volition is one of the central concerns of modern psychology. Freud, for example, described the mind as a battleground between different parts of the psyche: the rational, conscious mind, the ego; the emotional, unconscious mind, the ID; and the moral or socialized part, the superego. Just as Descartes separated intellect and volition, Freud acknowledged that these different facets of the mind could conflict with one another, leading to behavior that seems irrational or counterproductive. Today, cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, explores how individuals can change their thought patterns, intellect, and behavioral patterns, volition, to improve mental health, especially in conditions where there is a disconnect between rational understanding and behavioral choices. What Descartes' theory highlights, and what modern psychology also shows us, is the complexity of human agency. Descartes believed that the will was an active force, one that could guide a person to make choices freely. However, this freedom is often more complicated than it seems. While we may feel free to make a choice, our choices are often shaped by factors beyond our immediate control: emotions, past experiences, social influences, and biological factors all play a role in guiding our decisions. This doesn't necessarily mean that we are not free to choose, but it does suggest that freedom is not always as clear-cut as Descartes' initial formulations might imply. Take, for example, the decision to eat a healthy meal. Intellectually, you may know that eating vegetables and whole grains is beneficial for your health. Your intellect can weigh the pros and cons, understand the nutritional benefits, and even recognize the importance of healthy eating. Yet, your volition, the force that drives your choices, may be swayed by your emotions or desires. Perhaps you crave a burger and fries instead, motivated by the comfort and pleasure these foods bring. Here, Descartes' distinction between intellect and volition is illuminated. The intellect understands what is good for you, but your volition, the active, emotional, and sometimes unconscious part of you, decides to indulge in the unhealthy choice. This scenario shows the tension between rational understanding and the will, highlighting that free will is not merely about making logical decisions, but also about navigating the complexities of emotions, desires, and impulses. In another sense, Descartes' theory sheds light on the internal conflicts we often face when making decisions. Imagine a person deciding whether to pursue a risky but potentially rewarding career change. The intellect might recognize the potential benefits, such as higher income or greater personal fulfillment, while also weighing the risks and uncertainties. But the will may resist, not because of rational calculations, but because of fear, insecurity, or a deep-seated desire for stability and safety. Descartes believed that volition was central to making choices. And in modern psychology, we often see that these types of decisions are influenced by complex emotional and cognitive factors. Free will, therefore, isn't just about choosing based on rational thought. It involves an active engagement with both rational and emotional aspects of the self. Descartes' theory also suggests a unique perspective on human responsibility. If we are truly free to make choices based on our will, then we are also responsible for those choices. This notion has been central to ethical philosophy and the concept of moral agency for centuries. In a world where we recognize the complexity of human behavior, where choices are not purely rational or emotional, but a combination of both, the question of responsibility becomes even more challenging. Are we still responsible for a decision that was largely driven by unconscious emotional impulses? Or does our intellectual understanding of the situation provide the ultimate basis for accountability? This tension between intellect and volition, rationality and emotion, is also reflected in the ongoing discourse around artificial intelligence. Can a machine have free will? Descartes would likely argue no, because machines, however sophisticated, lack the active force of volition. While an AI might process data and make decisions, it does so according to a set of algorithms and rules. It does not possess the active, autonomous capacity for choice that Descartes associated with the human mind. Free will, for Descartes, requires a conscious, self-aware mind that is capable of affirming or denying things based on reason and volition. In conclusion, Descartes' distinction between intellect and volition provides a powerful framework for understanding human cognition and decision-making. The intellect helps us understand and process the world around us, while volition drives our actions and decisions. Modern psychology has expanded on Descartes' insights, showing that our choices are often influenced by a complex mix of rational thought, emotions, and unconscious desires. While Descartes emphasized the active nature of the will, contemporary psychology and neuroscience suggest that our volition is often not entirely conscious or rational. Yet, despite these complexities, Descartes' theory remains an important starting point for exploring the depths of human agency, responsibility, and freedom. René Descartes, one of the most influential figures in the history of philosophy, is perhaps best known for his method of radical skepticism and his famous declaration, Cogito Ergo Sum, I think, therefore I am. This statement, which may seem simple on the surface, carries profound implications about the nature of existence, knowledge, and certainty. Descartes' radical skepticism led him to a point where he doubted everything, even his own existence. But in the very act of doubting, he discovered a fundamental truth, that the very capacity to doubt proved his own existence. Descartes' exploration into radical skepticism and the resulting Cogito challenge our understanding of what it means to exist and how we can know anything for certain. To fully grasp the depth of Descartes' philosophical journey, it's essential to understand how his radical skepticism works. Descartes, in his Meditations on First Philosophy, embarks on a path of skepticism so thorough that he decides to doubt everything he once held to be true. He doubts the existence of the physical world, the existence of other people, and even the validity of his own body. Essentially, Descartes questions all the beliefs that come from the senses and reason, suspecting that they could all be deceptive. The senses, after all, can be tricked. Think of the optical illusions we see every day. If the senses can mislead us, how can we trust anything they tell us? Furthermore, Descartes imagines the possibility that a malicious demon might be deceiving him, creating a completely fabricated reality. In this state of total uncertainty, Descartes reaches the conclusion that nothing can be known for sure, except for one thing. The very act of doubting or thinking is undeniable proof of his own existence. The fact that he is capable of doubt, of questioning, means that there must be a thinking being doing the doubting. This leads to his famous conclusion, Cogito Ergo Sum. Descartes realizes that while he can doubt everything, the existence of the world, other people, even his own body, he cannot doubt the fact that he is doubting. Doubt, in a sense, requires thought, and thinking requires a thinker. Therefore, the very act of doubting affirms that Descartes exists as a thinking being. His existence as a conscious subject, capable of thinking and doubting, becomes the foundational truth from which all further knowledge can be built. This radical shift in thinking represents not just a leap forward in philosophy, but also a foundational rethinking of how we approach knowledge and certainty. To illustrate the power of this idea, imagine you are dreaming. In the dream, everything feels real. You might be walking through a familiar place, talking to a friend, or feeling emotions that seem just as vivid as any real-life experience. Then, you wake up, the dream world dissolves, and you realize it was all an illusion. But while you were dreaming, it felt just as real as the waking world. Descartes' point in his Skepticism is that this experience of dreaming demonstrates how the line between reality and illusion can be blurry. In the dream, everything you perceive feels true, but it is not. So, how do you know, for certain, that you are not dreaming right now? How can you be sure that your perceptions are not merely a figment of your mind? Like the dream world, Descartes challenges us to confront this uncertainty head-on. If we can doubt everything else, the one thing that remains certain is that we are doubting that we are thinking beings. This is why Cogito Ergo Sum is so revolutionary. It places thought itself at the center of all knowledge, asserting that our very capacity for self-awareness and reflection is the only undeniable proof of our existence. Descartes' radical skepticism is a method that doesn't just question the existence of the external world. It also forces us to confront the limitations of our knowledge and the assumptions we take for granted. It asks us to strip away everything we think we know and examine the foundations of our beliefs. It's not just about doubting the existence of the world around us, but about challenging everything we believe, even the things we might think are self-evident or unshakable. The very core of Descartes' philosophy is a deep commitment to questioning assumptions, to seeing past the surface of things, and to realizing that what we take to be true may not be true at all. This approach, though radical, ultimately leads Descartes to a profound insight that doubt itself is a form of proof, and that through doubt, we can arrive at certainty. What Descartes did, in essence, was to ask the most profound question about existence. How do I know I exist? This is a question that most people take for granted. We go about our daily lives assuming the reality of our own existence, the existence of the world, and the certainty of our senses. Descartes, however, forced us to confront these assumptions. In his eyes, questioning our own existence is not an absurd or unnecessary exercise, it's an essential part of understanding the nature of reality. Descartes' journey reminds us that even the most basic assumptions should not be left unexamined. In a way, Descartes' skepticism is an invitation to think more deeply about the world, to question our most fundamental beliefs, and to be more conscious of the nature of our own consciousness. In today's world, where technology, media, and external influences bombard us with information and distractions, Descartes' skepticism resonates more than ever. We live in a time when the line between reality and illusion is increasingly difficult to discern. With the advent of virtual reality, artificial intelligence, and deepfakes, we are constantly confronted with representations of the world that blur the line between what is real and what is not. Descartes' radical doubt encourages us to reflect on the nature of knowledge and perception in an age where the boundaries between the real and the constructed are often indistinguishable. Consider, for instance, the phenomenon of social media. On platforms like Instagram or Facebook, people often present curated versions of their lives, highlighting the best moments and presenting an idealized self-image. For someone scrolling through their feed, it may seem like everyone else is living a perfect life. But is this the reality? Is the version of themselves that people put out into the world the same as who they are in private? Just as in the dream state, where appearances are deceiving, social media creates a world that can feel real. but isn't necessarily reflective of the true reality of people's lives. Descartes' skepticism reminds us to question the surface of things and not take appearances at face value. The world we experience through our senses might be deceptive, and we should not assume that everything we perceive is an accurate representation of reality. Descartes' skepticism also applies to the ways in which we consume information. In an age of constant news cycles, clickbait headlines, and misinformation, we are bombarded with facts that may not always be true. Just as Descartes doubted the reliability of his senses, we should question the sources of information we rely on and the narratives we accept without question. In many ways, his philosophy offers a guide for navigating a world where certainty is elusive and where assumptions can be easily manipulated. But beyond these external challenges, Descartes' journey reminds us to question the internal assumptions we make about ourselves and our place in the world. How often do we take our own thoughts and feelings for granted? How often do we assume that we know exactly who we are and what we believe without ever questioning it? Descartes' radical doubt isn't just about doubting the external world. It's also about doubting the internal world, the assumptions we carry about our own consciousness and existence. The cogito, I think, therefore I am, is not just an affirmation of our existence. It is an invitation to think more critically about the nature of our own thinking, to be more aware of the thoughts that shape our perception of the world, and to be more conscious of the assumptions that govern our lives. In conclusion, Descartes' radical skepticism and his famous cogito represent a revolutionary way of thinking about knowledge, existence, and reality. By doubting everything, including his own existence, Descartes arrived at the undeniable truth that the very act of doubting proves his existence as a thinking being. His exploration into skepticism challenges us to question everything we think we know, to peel back layers of certainty, and to confront the fundamental assumptions we make about the world and ourselves. While Descartes' skepticism was radical in its time, it remains deeply relevant today in a world where the line between reality and illusion is constantly shifting. His philosophy urges us not to take things at face value, but to seek a deeper understanding of the world, the self, and the nature of knowledge itself. Descartes' philosophy stands out not only for its deep exploration into the nature of knowledge, existence, and reality, but also for the role that God plays in this grand framework. For Descartes, God is not merely a religious or theological figure, but the essential guarantor of truth. In his system of thought, the existence of a perfect and benevolent God serves as the cornerstone that ensures the reliability of our perceptions and the clarity of our reasoning. This is an essential aspect of Descartes' philosophy, especially when it comes to addressing doubts about the external world and the nature of reality. To fully understand Descartes' reasoning on this matter, we must delve into his argument about the role of God, the importance of clear and distinct perceptions, and the ways in which God serves as the guarantor of our rational capacities. At the heart of Descartes' epistemology, the theory of knowledge, lies the idea that our perceptions must be reliable if we are to know the world around us. Descartes' method of radical skepticism, which pushed him to question everything, even his own existence, led him to a critical insight: that the human mind cannot always be trusted on its own. Without some sort of external guarantee, there is no way to be absolutely certain about anything. This is where Descartes introduces the figure of God. According to Descartes, God is the ultimate source of truth and, more importantly, the only being capable of guaranteeing the reliability of our perceptions. Without God, Descartes argues, there would be nothing to ensure that our faculties of perception and reason are trustworthy. Our senses could deceive us, and our mind could be led astray, as it might be subject to the illusions of a deceptive demon. However, the existence of a perfect God, in Descartes' view, assures us that our clear and distinct perceptions are truthful. The idea that God guarantees the truth of clear and distinct perceptions is crucial in understanding Descartes' system of thought. For Descartes, clear and distinct perceptions are those that are so self-evident that they cannot possibly be false. This notion is central to his epistemology because it provides the foundation for knowledge. When we have a clear and distinct idea, something we grasp with certainty, Descartes believed that we could trust that idea as true. But how do we know that these clear and distinct perceptions are, in fact, true? For Descartes, the answer lies in the perfection of God. Since God is a perfect being, it follows that he would not deceive us. Therefore, the clarity and distinctness of our ideas must be a sign that they correspond to reality. Without God's benevolent guarantee, Descartes suggests, we would have no reason to trust even our most basic perceptions. At first glance, this reliance on God might seem unnecessary or outdated, especially in a world where scientific and technological advancements have come to dominate our understanding of truth. In the modern age, we often turn to empirical evidence, experiments, and data to validate our understanding of the world. Descartes' appeal to God as the guarantor of truth may appear to be a relic of an earlier, more religiously oriented time. However, if we take a moment to consider Descartes' reasoning, we can see that his reliance on God has a more profound purpose in his system of thought. Descartes was not attempting to prove the existence of God as a matter of religious belief alone. Rather, he was establishing God as an essential part of the rational foundation of knowledge itself. In a sense, Descartes' God is a philosophical necessity, a being whose perfection ensures that our intellectual capacities are aligned with the truth. To put this into a more modern context, think of God's role in Descartes' philosophy as something like a compass guiding us through a foggy landscape. Imagine you are walking through a dense fog, where everything around you is unclear, and it's difficult to see the path ahead. Without any guidance, you might wander off course, losing your way. However, if you have a compass, it provides you with a reliable point of reference, helping you stay on track even when the surroundings are indistinct. Similarly, for Descartes, God acts as the guiding compass for the mind, providing us with the clarity we need to discern truth from falsehood. Even when the world around us is filled with uncertainty, confusion, or illusion, God's perfection ensures that our rational faculties are capable of finding the truth. In this sense, Descartes' God is not just a theological figure but a foundational principle for understanding how we come to know anything at all. This analogy of a compass guiding us through fog is particularly useful in understanding how Descartes' reliance on God functions in his system. Just as a compass doesn't reveal the exact details of the terrain, but instead provides a stable reference point, Descartes believes that God does not directly reveal the full nature of the world to us. Instead, God ensures that our reasoning faculties are properly aligned with reality, enabling us to navigate the world and arrive at truths with confidence. Descartes' reliance on God is not so much about divine revelation or mystical insight, but about the assurance that our mental faculties, our ability to reason and understand, are reliable. This notion of a perfect God also ties into Descartes' broader philosophical project, which was rooted in skepticism and the search for certainty. In a world filled with doubts and uncertainties, Descartes needed a foundation upon which to build reliable knowledge. Without God as the guarantor of truth, Descartes' entire system would be in jeopardy. It is because of God's perfection and goodness that Descartes can confidently assert that our clear and distinct perceptions are true. In a sense, God functions as the ultimate safeguard against deception. Without this safeguard, Descartes suggests, the very possibility of knowledge would be undermined. Therefore, while modern thinkers may be less inclined to view God as the ultimate guarantor of truth, Descartes' philosophical reliance on God speaks to a deeper issue: the need for certainty and reliability in our understanding of the world. Interestingly, the role of God in Descartes' philosophy also addresses some of the deepest challenges of epistemology, or the theory of knowledge. In Descartes' time, philosophers were deeply concerned with skepticism, the idea that we can never truly know anything for sure. This was a central issue for thinkers like Pyrrho and Sextus Empiricus, who argued that all knowledge is uncertain and that we should suspend judgment on everything. Descartes, however, sought to answer this skepticism by finding a firm foundation for knowledge. For him, the existence of a perfect God provided this foundation, because it ensured that our clear and distinct perceptions correspond to reality. The very existence of a perfect God made it possible for us to escape the traps of radical skepticism, because we could rely on our faculties to reveal the truth. One might wonder whether Descartes' reliance on God can still be meaningful in today's world. As we move further into the realms of scientific discovery and technological advancement, it's tempting to look to empirical evidence, data, and observable phenomena to define what is real and true. And indeed, science has proven to be an invaluable tool in revealing the workings of the physical world. However, the role of God in Descartes' philosophy is not necessarily incompatible with a scientific worldview. It's important to remember that Descartes' God does not conflict with the idea of a rational and empirical universe. Instead, Descartes positions God as the ultimate guarantor of our rational faculties, ensuring that our ability to reason and understand the world is aligned with objective reality. In a sense, God functions as the guarantor of the very possibility of scientific inquiry. Without a perfect and benevolent God, Descartes argues, our minds would be prone to error and deception, and we would have no reliable way of knowing the truth. In a modern context, Descartes' reliance on God may appear less central, but his philosophical insights still provide a valuable framework for thinking about knowledge, perception, and truth. In an age where information is easily manipulated, where perceptions can be distorted by technology, and where subjective experience often clouds objective reality, Descartes' insistence on the reliability of clear and distinct perceptions is more relevant than ever. While we may not invoke God in the same way Descartes did, we still need ways to ensure that the knowledge we rely on is trustworthy, whether through scientific verification, critical thinking, or skepticism. Descartes' philosophy invites us to consider how we can discern truth in a world filled with uncertainty and illusion. In conclusion, the role of God in Descartes' philosophy is foundational, as God serves as the guarantor of truth, ensuring the reliability of our clear and distinct perceptions. While this idea may seem outdated in a world dominated by science and technology, Descartes' reasoning provides valuable insights into how we understand the relationship between perception, truth, and the mind. God, for Descartes, is not just a theological figure, but a crucial philosophical concept that ensures our reasoning is aligned with the truth. In a world filled with uncertainty and doubt, Descartes' God provides a necessary foundation for knowledge, guiding us through the fog of illusion and deception to a clearer understanding of reality. Whether or not we accept Descartes' religious beliefs, his philosophical insights into the nature of knowledge and truth remain deeply influential, offering a framework for navigating the complexities of human understanding. Descartes' contributions to modern science are often overshadowed by his philosophical legacy, but his influence on the development of the scientific method, particularly in the realm of physics, cannot be overstated. Descartes is often credited with laying the groundwork for modern physics through his mechanistic view of the universe, a perspective that shaped the way scientists, including Isaac Newton, would later approach the natural world. Descartes famously compared the universe to a machine, governed not by divine will, but by predictable physical laws that could be studied, understood, and manipulated. This mechanistic vision of the cosmos was revolutionary and set the stage for what would eventually become the scientific revolution. Before Descartes, the dominant view of the universe in Western thought was largely shaped by religious and metaphysical beliefs. The idea that the cosmos was a living entity, influenced by divine intervention, was pervasive in many intellectual circles. Theological explanations for natural phenomena, based on the idea that the universe operated under the direction of God's will, were seen as sufficient to account for everything from the motion of the planets to the changes in the seasons. However, Descartes fundamentally shifted this perspective by proposing that the universe operated like a gigantic machine, subject to natural laws that could be understood through reason and observation. For Descartes, the cosmos was not a living organism imbued with purpose or meaning by a divine force. Instead, it was a system of matter in motion, governed by mechanistic laws that could be deciphered through the application of reason. This idea of a mechanical universe was grounded in the belief that all physical phenomena could be explained by the interactions of matter and motion, rather than by supernatural forces. Descartes' vision was, in many ways, the precursor to the later developments in physics that would come to define the scientific revolution. The mechanistic worldview he proposed made it possible for later thinkers, including Newton, to develop models of the physical universe that relied on predictable, mathematical laws. At the heart of Descartes' mechanistic view was the belief that everything in the universe, from the smallest particles to the largest celestial bodies, operated according to fixed, predictable laws of nature. He saw the universe as a kind of clockwork machine, where each part was connected to and influenced by the others, just as a clock's gears and springs work together to keep time. The parts of the universe functioned according to a set of natural principles that could be understood and described mathematically. This idea that the universe operated as a machine had a profound impact on the way that scientists would approach the study of nature in the centuries that followed. One of the most significant aspects of Descartes' mechanistic worldview was the way it removed the need for divine intervention to explain natural phenomena. Prior to Descartes, many natural events, from the movement of the planets to the growth of plants, were often seen as the result of God's will or intervention. Descartes' mechanistic model, however, suggested that these events could be explained through natural causes, independent of any divine agency. This shift in thinking was revolutionary because it marked a departure from the theological explanations that had dominated Western thought for centuries. By emphasizing the idea that the universe was governed by physical laws, Descartes opened the door for a new kind of scientific inquiry, one based on observation, experimentation, and rational deduction, rather than on religious or metaphysical explanations. Descartes' mechanistic view also had significant implications for the study of physics. By treating the physical world as a machine, he laid the foundation for the development of classical mechanics, the branch of physics that would later be formalized by figures such as Newton. Descartes' insistence that natural phenomena could be understood in terms of motion and material interactions laid the groundwork for the concept of inertia, which would become one of the key principles in Newton's laws of motion. While Descartes' own theories of motion and mechanics were eventually superseded by Newton's more refined models, his ideas provided an important starting point for the development of modern physics. However, Descartes' mechanistic view of the universe was not without its challenges. His theories of motion and material interaction were eventually questioned by other philosophers and scientists, most notably by Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz and Isaac Newton. Leibniz, for example, argued that Descartes' view of the universe as a machine did not account for the presence of intrinsic forces in nature. Leibniz believed that bodies had an inherent, internal force, what he called vis viva, or living force that could not be fully explained by the mechanical laws that Descartes had proposed. Leibniz's ideas about forces would later influence the development of the concept of energy in physics, which became central to the scientific revolution. Newton, too, challenged some of Descartes' ideas, particularly his views on motion and the nature of forces. While Newton adopted Descartes' belief in a mechanical universe, he introduced the concept of gravity, which added an additional layer of complexity to the model of the cosmos. In contrast to Descartes, who believed that all forces could be reduced to the interaction of particles and material motion, Newton argued that gravity was a universal force that acted at a distance, without any direct contact between objects. This idea of gravity as a force that could act through empty space was a significant departure from Descartes' purely mechanical model and marked a critical turning point in the development of modern physics. Despite these challenges, Descartes' mechanistic view of the universe continued to influence the development of science well into the modern era. His emphasis on reason, observation, and mathematical modeling laid the groundwork for the empirical methods that are still used in scientific inquiry today. Descartes' influence can be seen in the way that scientists approach the study of nature. They seek to identify the laws that govern the physical world and apply reason and mathematics to describe the underlying principles of natural phenomena. The idea that the universe operates according to predictable laws, rather than being subject to arbitrary divine intervention, remains a cornerstone of modern scientific thought. In the contemporary world, Descartes' mechanistic view of the universe still resonates, though it has been refined and expanded upon by modern physics. Today, we understand that the forces that drive the motion of particles and celestial bodies are far more complex than Descartes could have imagined. Quantum mechanics, relativity, and the study of dark matter have all challenged the simple clockwork model of the universe that Descartes proposed. Nevertheless, Descartes' fundamental insight that the universe operates according to laws that can be understood and described by human reason remains an enduring influence on the way we think about the natural world. But here's the kicker: Descartes' mechanistic view, while groundbreaking, was eventually challenged by thinkers like Leibniz and Newton, who proposed alternative ideas about the nature of forces in the universe. Leibniz introduced the concept of intrinsic forces, while Newton's theory of gravity demonstrated that bodies can exert forces on one another without physical contact. These developments show that the simple mechanical view of the universe that Descartes proposed was insufficient to explain the full complexity of the natural world. And yet, even with these advancements, Descartes' ideas continue to influence modern science, particularly in the way we approach problems and seek to uncover the fundamental laws of nature. Descartes' mechanistic view also raises interesting questions about how we think of the forces that govern our own lives. In many ways, Descartes' view of the universe as a machine governed by natural laws is analogous to how we think about the forces that shape human behavior and society. Just as the physical world operates according to predictable laws, human behavior, too, can often be understood through patterns and systems. For example, the rise of artificial intelligence and the study of human cognition have led to a growing interest in understanding the mechanisms of the human mind. What forces drive human thought and decision-making? Are we simply the product of material interactions, or is there something more to our consciousness and free will? In today's world, the forces that drive our lives may not be as easily understood as the physical laws governing the universe. The complexities of human behavior, social dynamics, and individual choices make it difficult to draw neat parallels to Descartes' mechanistic model. And yet, the pursuit of understanding the forces that shape our lives, whether they are physical, psychological, or social, is very much in the spirit of Descartes' scientific revolution. Just as Descartes sought to understand the natural world in mechanical terms, we, too, seek to understand the mechanisms that drive human behavior, decision-making, and the course of history. Ultimately, Descartes' mechanistic view of the universe represents a pivotal moment in the history of science. By shifting the focus from a world shaped by divine intervention to one governed by natural laws, Descartes opened the door to modern physics and the scientific revolution. His ideas laid the foundation for later thinkers like Newton, who would refine and expand upon them. And while Descartes' view of the universe was eventually challenged and modified, his emphasis on reason, observation, and the search for underlying laws remains central to the way we approach science today. The questions he raised about the forces that drive the universe and the search for the fundamental principles that govern our existence continue to shape our understanding of the world. René Descartes, often regarded as the father of modern philosophy, left an indelible mark not only on the way we think about knowledge, existence, and the mind, but also on the way we approach morality. Descartes' philosophy presents morality as the highest form of wisdom, a guiding principle that seeks harmony between our reason and our actions. His approach to morality, deeply rooted in his method of doubt and his emphasis on reason, challenges us to view ethical choices not merely as obligations or societal norms, but as an exercise in self-understanding, self-control, and alignment with universal truths. Descartes did not see morality as a set of fixed commandments or rules handed down from an external authority. Instead, he believed that true morality was about consistency with reason, an understanding of the self, and an ability to act in accordance with our rational nature. For Descartes, wisdom was the key to achieving a moral life. This wisdom, however, was not abstract or detached from the world around us. Rather, it was a rational understanding of both the universe and our inner selves, which enabled us to make decisions that were virtuous and aligned with truth. To understand Descartes' view on morality, it is crucial to see how his broader philosophy shapes it. Central to Descartes' worldview was his concept of reason, which he saw as the defining characteristic of human nature. In his most famous declaration, Cogito Ergo Sum, I think, therefore I am, Descartes placed the capacity for thought, and by extension, reason at the heart of what it means to be human. Morality, for Descartes, arose from this ability to think rationally and act in accordance with reason. In his work Meditations on First Philosophy, Descartes discussed how the mind, when properly guided by reason, can discern right from wrong, and how acting in a way that aligns with this reason constitutes the highest form of virtue. Descartes' moral philosophy, though deeply rooted in reason, also had a strong affinity with the Stoic tradition. The Stoics, with their focus on virtue and self-control, taught that individuals should focus on what is within their control, namely, their own thoughts, feelings, and actions, and disregard the external forces that often cloud judgment. This resonates strongly with Descartes' view that morality involves understanding and aligning one's behavior with reason, independent of the external world. For Descartes, external circumstances, such as wealth, status, or even physical desires, were distractions that could pull us away from the true path of wisdom. Morality, in his view, was not about reacting to the external world, but about cultivating the inner rationality that enables one to act virtuously, regardless of the external situation. One of the most illustrative examples of Descartes' moral philosophy can be found in his emphasis on acting with consistency and clarity of thought. Imagine, for a moment, that you are standing in front of a choice, say, a decision about how to spend your time. You have the option to either work towards a meaningful goal or to indulge in a distraction, perhaps something less significant, like checking your social media feed. Descartes would argue that your decision should not be based on the transient allure of the distraction or external pressures, but on your ability to act rationally, understanding what is truly beneficial in the long term. In this sense, morality becomes an exercise in self-discipline, a commitment to acting in accordance with reason and to focusing on what truly contributes to your well-being. The idea of consistency with reason, however, is not limited to simple daily decisions. It extends to our larger ethical choices: how we treat others, how we respond to injustice, how we manage our desires and ambitions. Descartes did not expect individuals to be perfect, but he did believe that through consistent self-reflection and rational thought, one could align their actions with moral principles. Take, for example, the way many of us make decisions in our professional lives. Often, we are faced with situations where we must choose between what is easiest or most immediately gratifying and what is morally right or beneficial in the long run. Descartes would argue that true morality involves acting according to reason, even when the easier choice seems more tempting. This means that our decisions should be made not in reaction to external pressures, whether societal, financial, or emotional, but based on our understanding of what is best for our personal growth and the greater good. Descartes also places a significant emphasis on understanding the self as part of the process of moral decision-making. For him, wisdom was not just an abstract intellectual pursuit, but a practical tool for understanding our deepest nature. In his discourse on the method, Descartes suggests that the key to wisdom lies in knowing ourselves, recognizing our own limitations, understanding our desires and drives, and learning how to align them with reason. This self-awareness is crucial for making moral decisions, as it allows us to distinguish between what is truly in our best interest and what might be the result of fleeting emotions or irrational desires. This view aligns with a broader philosophical trend toward the cultivation of self-awareness and self-control as the cornerstone of ethical behavior. In today's world, where moral choices often seem more complex and clouded by external pressures, Descartes' message is remarkably relevant. How many times do we allow external circumstances such as wealth, status, or even the influence of social media to cloud our judgment? Descartes' focus on the importance of reason and self-understanding provides a timeless framework for navigating these pressures. Rather than being swayed by external forces, we are reminded to look inward, to our reason and our understanding of what is truly valuable, and to act in accordance with that wisdom. Take the modern world of social media as an example. The platforms we engage with daily are designed to create distractions, offering endless streams of entertainment and validation. The temptation to indulge in these distractions can be overwhelming. Yet Descartes' philosophy offers a way out of this cycle. By exercising reason and self-discipline, we can step back and question whether our engagement with these platforms is truly in line with our values. Are we spending our time on these platforms to nourish our intellectual and emotional well-being? Or are we being driven by external pressures, such as the need for validation or the fear of missing out? Descartes would argue that true morality involves making decisions based on reason, not being pulled into the whims of external circumstances. Moreover, Descartes' emphasis on reason as the basis for moral action challenges us to think critically about the world around us and to question assumptions that may be ingrained in society. For example, societal norms often dictate what is considered successful or desirable wealth, status, and power are frequently portrayed as the ultimate goals. Descartes, however, would encourage us to question these values, to consider whether they are truly in line with reason and the pursuit of wisdom. True success, in his view, would not be measured by material possessions or social recognition, but by the alignment of our actions with reason and virtue. This call for inner wisdom and self-reflection also extends to how we treat others. Descartes believed that morality required not only self-discipline but also a commitment to acting in ways that are consistent with reason in relation to others. In the context of interpersonal relationships, this means acting with fairness, kindness, and respect. By developing a deeper understanding of ourselves, we can better understand the needs and feelings of others and act in ways that contribute to mutual well-being. Descartes' philosophy of morality provides us with a profound challenge. It urges us to look beyond the superficial distractions of modern life and to focus on cultivating an inner moral compass. By practicing self-reflection, acting in accordance with reason, and recognizing what we can and cannot control, we can navigate the complexities of life with greater clarity and purpose. In a world that often values external success and fleeting pleasures over true wisdom and virtue, Descartes' message remains as relevant as ever. Ultimately, Descartes teaches us that morality is not merely about following a set of external rules or fulfilling societal expectations. It is about aligning our actions with reason, cultivating wisdom, and striving to act virtuously, regardless of the external circumstances. His view of morality, grounded in self-awareness, reason, and consistency, offers a path toward living a more meaningful and authentic life, one that is guided not by the whims of external forces, but by the inner clarity of rational understanding. René Descartes' philosophy, while deeply rooted in abstract thought and metaphysical inquiry, offers profound insights into personal development and the way we approach life's challenges. His famous method of doubt, known as Cartesian skepticism, provides not just a tool for questioning the foundations of knowledge, but also a framework for how we can live more intentionally, make better decisions, and develop a clearer understanding of ourselves and the world. Descartes' radical skepticism teaches us that we should not take anything for granted, especially our beliefs and assumptions. But the key is not to remain in doubt, but to use it as a springboard for deeper understanding and more deliberate action. Descartes' skepticism was not about embracing uncertainty for the sake of uncertainty. It was about using doubt as a method to eliminate what is false, unreliable, or ungrounded in truth. This process, for Descartes, was a way of peeling back layers of assumption to arrive at the very core of knowledge, something that is undeniable and certain. Descartes famously declared Cogito Ergo Sum, I think, therefore I am, asserting that the very act of doubting one's existence proves the existence of the doubter as a thinking being. But Descartes' doubt extends far beyond the simple affirmation of one's existence. It is a method by which we continuously re-examine and refine our beliefs, behaviors, and choices, ultimately leading to greater clarity and wisdom. Applying Descartes' method of doubt to personal development can be a transformative experience. The core of this philosophy is the idea that by constantly questioning what we know, what we believe, and how we act, we are able to strip away falsehoods and superficial understandings, leaving only that which is true and valuable. This process of intellectual purification not only helps us to understand the world more clearly, but also empowers us to make more thoughtful decisions and live more intentional lives. Consider, for instance, A difficult decision you might face, whether it's choosing between career paths, deciding whether to stay in a relationship, or figuring out how to handle a conflict at work. Often, these decisions are clouded by assumptions, biases, and external pressures. For example, you might feel compelled to follow a particular career path because society values it or because it promises financial security, even if it doesn't align with your true passions or long-term happiness. Or perhaps, in a relationship, you might stay in a situation that no longer serves you because of a sense of obligation or fear of being alone. These are the types of situations where Descartes' method of doubt can be incredibly useful. What I've personally found helpful in such situations is to apply Descartes' radical skepticism. I start by asking myself, what am I truly sure of here? This question immediately forces me to confront the assumptions I've been carrying and the external influences that might be shaping my decisions. By stripping away these layers of assumption, I can begin to see the situation more clearly, free from the distortions of fear, social expectations, or past conditioning. In doing so, I often arrive at a much more deliberate and thoughtful decision, one that is based on what I actually value and what I truly believe to be the right course of action. For example, a few years ago, I found myself at a crossroads in my career. I was considering a job offer that came with a significant salary increase, but I had reservations about the company culture and whether the role aligned with my long-term goals. Initially, I felt conflicted. On the one hand, the increased salary was enticing, but on the other hand, I wasn't sure if it was the right fit for my personal and professional growth. Applying Descartes' method of doubt, I started by questioning everything I thought I knew about the situation. I asked myself, what am I really sure of here? What are my true goals? Is this job aligned with what I value? Or am I simply reacting to external pressures? By continually peeling back layers of assumption, I realized that while the salary increase was appealing, it wasn't the deciding factor in my happiness or fulfillment. What mattered more to me was the potential for personal growth and the alignment with my long-term vision. This clarity helped me make a decision that, in hindsight, was far more aligned with my true self. This is precisely what Descartes meant by using doubt as a tool. It's not about living in a state of perpetual uncertainty or indecision, but rather about using doubt to clear away falsehoods and distractions so that we can see the situation more clearly and make decisions based on what is truly important to us. This method can be applied not just to career decisions, but to any area of life where we feel uncertain or conflicted. It teaches us that our beliefs and actions are not fixed. They are subject to change and revision as we gain new insights and understanding. Another powerful aspect of Descartes' skepticism is that it invites us to question the very foundations of our beliefs. In a world where we are constantly bombarded by information and opinions, it can be easy to accept things at face value without ever questioning their truth. For instance, we might unconsciously adopt the values and beliefs of those around us, family, friends, culture, without ever critically examining whether these beliefs are truly our own or whether they are serving us in a meaningful way. Descartes' method encourages us to challenge these inherited beliefs and assumptions, questioning whether they are based on sound reasoning or whether they need to be revised or discarded altogether. In this sense, Descartes' skepticism is not just an intellectual exercise. It is a way of living. It's about developing a habit of continuously examining the beliefs, assumptions, and actions that shape our lives, and making adjustments when necessary. For example, in my own life, I have often found that certain beliefs I held about success, happiness, or relationships were not serving me well. By applying Descartes' method of doubt, I was able to challenge these beliefs and develop a more nuanced, informed, and authentic approach to these areas of my life. This practice of continual self-examination has been one of the most valuable tools in my personal development journey. Of course, doubt and skepticism can be uncomfortable, especially when we are forced to confront beliefs and assumptions that have been central to our identity. But this discomfort is precisely what makes Cartesian doubt such a powerful tool for growth. Just as a muscle grows stronger through resistance, our minds grow sharper through the discomfort of questioning and refining our beliefs. Descartes' skepticism teaches us that by embracing this discomfort, we can build a more resilient, adaptable, and self-aware sense of self. Furthermore, Descartes' method of doubt can be a powerful tool for emotional growth. Often, our emotions can cloud our judgment and lead us to make decisions based on fear, anxiety, or desire. In these moments, Descartes' skepticism can help us to step back and question whether our emotions are based on rational understanding or whether they are being driven by unconscious biases, past experiences, or external pressures. By applying the method of doubt to our emotional responses, we can cultivate greater emotional intelligence and make more rational, thoughtful decisions. For instance, imagine you're in a situation where you feel defensive or angry, perhaps during a disagreement with a colleague. Your immediate emotional reaction may be to defend yourself or to assert your position forcefully. However, by applying Descartes' method of doubt, you might ask yourself, what am I truly sure of in this situation? What is my underlying motivation here? Am I reacting out of defensiveness? Or is there something deeper that I need to address? This kind of self-reflection allows you to separate your emotional impulses from your rational understanding and respond in a way that is more aligned with your long-term goals and values. Over time, by regularly applying Descartes' method of doubt to different areas of life, you develop a more intentional and thoughtful approach to decision-making. It encourages you to question not just what you know, but how you know it, and whether your beliefs are grounded in truth or shaped by external forces. In this sense, Cartesian doubt becomes a tool for personal growth, helping you to refine your understanding of yourself and the world, and to make decisions that are more aligned with your true values and purpose. In conclusion, Descartes' philosophy of doubt offers a powerful framework for personal development. By continually questioning our beliefs, actions, and assumptions, we can gain a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us. This process of self-examination and refinement helps us to make more thoughtful, deliberate decisions and to live more intentionally. While it may be uncomfortable at times, the practice of doubt ultimately leads to greater clarity, wisdom, and emotional intelligence, empowering us to navigate the complexities of life with greater confidence and purpose. Cartesian doubt, then, is not just a method for philosophers, it's a way of life, a tool for growth, and a pathway to a more authentic and meaningful existence. Descartes' moral philosophy places a profound emphasis on the concept of free will, and it is through this lens that he offers one of his most lasting contributions to ethical thinking. According to Descartes, the essence of human freedom lies not in the mere absence of constraints, but in the ability to make rational, deliberate choices that align with our highest understanding of what is good. This understanding of free will as a moral faculty that enables us to act in harmony with reason sets Descartes apart from many of his predecessors, offering a vision of freedom that is both practical and deeply rooted in moral responsibility. One of the core principles of Descartes' philosophy is the idea that true freedom is not simply the ability to do anything we wish, but the ability to act in accordance with reason. In other words, freedom, for Descartes, is not about the lack of external barriers or constraints, but about the ability to make wise choices even when faced with internal desires or external temptations. It is this capacity for rational decision-making that allows us to live ethically and meaningfully. Take, for example, the everyday challenge of dealing with temptation. How many times do we know what is best for us, whether it's eating healthily, exercising regularly, or avoiding unhealthy relationships, but still act impulsively, driven by momentary desires or fleeting emotions? Descartes would argue that this inability to act in accordance with reason is a form of enslavement. True freedom, he would assert, lies in our capacity to act on our rational understanding of what is best for us, rather than being controlled by momentary impulses. The ability to pause, reflect, and choose wisely rather than simply reacting to our immediate desires represents the highest form of freedom in Descartes' moral philosophy. This perspective resonates strongly with the modern challenge of navigating a world filled with distractions, temptations, and constant external pressures. In a society that often values immediate gratification, where we are surrounded by advertising, social media, and entertainment designed to trigger our emotional responses, Descartes' emphasis on rationality and free will offers a refreshing perspective. His moral philosophy suggests that our true freedom is not dependent on external circumstances, but on our internal ability to choose how we respond to those circumstances. We may not be able to control everything that happens to us, but we always have the power to choose how we respond. And it is through these choices that our true freedom is realized. Think about how we approach decisions about our careers, relationships, or even daily habits. Often, we find ourselves swept along by the expectations of others or by our own desires for wealth, status, or pleasure. We may end up in jobs we don't enjoy, relationships that aren't fulfilling, or unhealthy habits that we know are detrimental to our well-being. Descartes would argue that this is a failure of free will because, in each of these cases, we are allowing our choices to be governed by external pressures or immediate desires, rather than by a reasoned reflection on what is truly best for us in the long term. To illustrate this point further, consider the example of someone deciding whether to take on a high-paying job that requires long hours and leaves little room for personal time. On the surface, the decision might seem straightforward. The higher salary promises greater financial security and status. However, Descartes would argue that the person's rational will should be the deciding factor. If, upon reflection, they realize that the job would significantly interfere with their health, relationships, or personal happiness, then true freedom lies in their ability to make a decision in line with their deepest values, not merely reacting to the external pull of money or status. In this way, Descartes' idea of free will is a call to live intentionally, guided by reason and a clear understanding of what is truly important in life. This leads to another key aspect of Descartes' moral philosophy, the idea that true freedom requires self-discipline and mastery over one's emotions. Descartes was deeply aware of the role that emotions can play in human decision-making, often clouding our judgment and leading us to act in ways that are not aligned with our rational understanding. In this sense, he saw freedom as an ongoing practice of managing one's emotions and impulses in a way that supports rational action. Freedom, for Descartes, is not about the absence of emotions or desires, but about the ability to control them in a way that allows us to act according to reason. Take, for example, the decision to confront someone who has wronged you. Emotions like anger or resentment might prompt you to act in a way that feels satisfying in the moment, but could harm your relationships or lead to regret later. Descartes would argue that true freedom in this situation is not letting anger control your actions, but instead using your rational will to decide how to respond in a way that aligns with your values and long-term goals. This requires self-awareness and emotional regulation, allowing you to make decisions not based on momentary feelings, but on a deeper, more thoughtful reflection on what is truly best. In today's fast-paced world, where emotional triggers are often at the forefront of our experiences, Descartes' notion of free will as rational decision-making remains incredibly relevant. We live in a time where consumerism, social media, and even our own internal pressures often push us toward instant gratification. Whether it's scrolling through social media, buying something impulsively, or giving in to unhealthy habits, we are constantly faced with decisions that challenge our ability to act in accordance with reason. Descartes' framework offers a pathway for navigating this landscape by emphasizing the importance of self-control and reflection. By practicing rational decision-making, we can regain control over our impulses and make choices that are aligned with our long-term happiness and fulfillment. This brings us to the concept of acting with purpose, which is central to Descartes' moral philosophy. For Descartes, freedom is not merely about choosing what we want in the moment. It is about choosing in a way that reflects our higher goals and values. This requires a clear understanding of what we truly want and the ability to act in alignment with those goals, even in the face of temptations or distractions. Descartes' emphasis on purpose-driven action suggests that true freedom is not just about reacting to life's circumstances, but about proactively shaping our lives in a way that reflects our deepest commitments. In the modern world, this idea of living with purpose is especially important. It is easy to become swept up in the noise and chaos of everyday life, allowing ourselves to be influenced by external pressures or fleeting desires. However, Descartes challenges us to take a step back and ask ourselves what is truly important to us. By doing so, we can make decisions that reflect our long-term goals and values, rather than being swayed by the short-term temptations and distractions that are all around us. This kind of intentional living requires discipline and a commitment to acting in accordance with reason. But it is through this commitment that we can truly experience the freedom that Descartes describes. In a sense, Descartes' moral philosophy is a call to take responsibility for our own lives. By focusing on our ability to choose wisely and act in line with reason, we become the architects of our own freedom. In a world that often feels chaotic and out of control, this emphasis on free will gives us the power to shape our lives and make decisions that reflect our truest selves. Descartes' belief that freedom lies in rational choice and moral discipline offers a roadmap for living a life that is truly free. Not in the sense of having no restrictions, but in the sense of living in accordance with our deepest values and the highest understanding of what is good. This understanding of freedom can also be applied to our interactions with others. In a society where we often feel pressured to conform to social norms, follow trends, or meet expectations, Descartes' emphasis on rationality and self-discipline encourages us to make choices that are not driven by the need for approval or external validation. Instead, we can choose to live in a way that reflects our authentic selves, acting in ways that are true to our values, regardless of what others may think. This idea of living with integrity, guided by reason and free will, is perhaps one of the most profound lessons we can take from Descartes' moral philosophy. In conclusion, Descartes' view of free will as the ability to choose wisely and act in accordance with reason offers a powerful and timeless perspective on morality. It challenges us to think carefully about our choices and to act with purpose, rather than being driven by impulse or external pressures. By focusing on our capacity for rational decision-making, Descartes provides a model for living intentionally and with integrity, enabling us to navigate the complexities of life in a way that reflects our highest understanding of what is good. In today's world, where so much seems beyond our control, Descartes' emphasis on the freedom to choose how we respond to circumstances offers a path to true liberation, the kind of freedom that comes from living with wisdom, self-discipline, and purpose. René Descartes' philosophy marks a pivotal moment in the development of modern thought. His work fundamentally transformed how we approach questions of knowledge, existence, and morality, laying the groundwork for much of what would become Western philosophy. The ideas he advanced: doubt, mind-body dualism, the role of God in ensuring rational order, and the nature of free will have continued to shape our intellectual landscape and influence contemporary debates in areas as diverse as cognitive science, ethics, and the philosophy of mind. Descartes' most significant contribution to philosophy was his method of radical doubt, which led him to question the very foundations of what could be known for certain. His famous statement, Cogito Ergo Sum, I think, therefore I am, encapsulates the core insight that, while everything else might be subject to doubt, including the external world, other people, and even our bodies, the one thing that could not be doubted was the existence of the thinking self. In a world overwhelmed by uncertainty and skepticism, Descartes' emphasis on the necessity of doubt helped to pave the way for a new era of scientific inquiry and philosophical exploration. His insistence on questioning everything forced him, and by extension, all subsequent thinkers, to begin from a place of radical uncertainty and build up a framework for understanding the world that could withstand skepticism. Descartes' method of doubt is not merely an abstract intellectual exercise. It serves as a reminder of the importance of challenging assumptions and examining beliefs critically. In a world where we are bombarded with information from all sides, much of it designed to appeal to our emotions or confirm our existing biases, Descartes' approach remains highly relevant. In today's fast-paced, information-overloaded society, it's easy to accept things at face value without questioning their validity. The ubiquity of social media, for instance, often encourages individuals to adopt opinions and beliefs based on surface-level appearances, viral trends, or emotional appeal rather than reasoned reflection. Descartes' philosophy reminds us that the very act of questioning, of doubting our most cherished beliefs and assumptions, is the first step toward true knowledge. His call for a more methodical approach to understanding the world is a clarion call in an era dominated by soundbites and shallow engagement with complex issues. In a similar vein, Descartes' mind-body dualism continues to have a profound impact on contemporary discussions in philosophy and science. Descartes' distinction between the mind, an immaterial substance responsible for thought and reasoning, and the body, a physical substance governed by the laws of nature, has set the stage for countless debates about the nature of consciousness, free will, and the relationship between the mind and the brain. Although many of the specifics of Descartes' dualism have been challenged and modified over the centuries, particularly with the rise of neuroscience and materialist explanations of mind, the fundamental distinction between mental and physical phenomena remains an essential part of the conversation in fields such as psychology, cognitive science, and artificial intelligence. Consider the ongoing debates about artificial intelligence and the nature of consciousness. Descartes' dualism, with its clear separation between the mind and the body, raises profound questions about the possibility of machines having consciousness. If the mind is distinct from the body, could a machine ever possess a mind of its own? Or would its thoughts simply be the result of programming and mechanical processes? As AI systems become increasingly sophisticated and begin to mimic human behavior in increasingly convincing ways, these questions gain greater urgency. Descartes' insistence on the separateness of mind and body forces us to ask, what exactly does it mean to be conscious? What does it mean to think or reason? These questions may not have clear answers, but they are questions that Descartes set the stage for us to ask. Moreover, Descartes' insistence on the importance of reason and the role of God in securing our capacity for rational thought continues to be a source of both inspiration and controversy. In his philosophy, Descartes posits that God guarantees the truth of clear and distinct perceptions, ensuring that our rational minds can be trusted to discern reality. This view, while central to Descartes' system, is one that has sparked considerable debate. In an age where scientific inquiry and empirical observation have largely supplanted religious explanations of natural phenomena, Descartes' reliance on God as the guarantor of truth may seem outdated or even quaint. However, it's important to note that Descartes did not see his belief in God as a mere theological assertion. He saw it as an essential element of his epistemology. Without a perfect, benevolent God, Descartes argued, there would be no guarantee that our perceptions of the world were accurate. If God were deceptive, as some skeptics had suggested, we could not trust even our most basic perceptions of reality. In the context of contemporary philosophy, this raises interesting questions about the relationship between faith and reason. While modern philosophers may not share Descartes' religious commitments, his emphasis on the role of a higher power in securing the truth of our reasoned understanding can be seen as a precursor to later developments in epistemology, such as the philosophy of science. Descartes' insistence on the importance of clarity and distinctness in our perceptions can be thought of as an early precursor to the rigorous standards of evidence and logical reasoning that are central to the scientific method. In this sense, Descartes' work lays the foundation for a worldview in which reason is the ultimate arbiter of truth, and faith in the reliability of our reasoning abilities is essential. Descartes' influence also extends into the realm of ethics. For him, morality was closely tied to reason, and he believed that the highest form of wisdom was to act in accordance with rational understanding. This idea aligns closely with the Stoic philosophy, which emphasizes the importance of self-control and virtue. For Descartes, living morally meant aligning one's actions with reason, and cultivating the ability to make choices that were consistent with one's understanding of what is good. In an era of instant gratification and emotional decision-making, Descartes' call for reasoned, deliberate action is a valuable reminder. In the modern world, where we are often swayed by external influences from social media trends to the pressure to conform to societal expectations, the importance of acting according to reason has never been more pressing. Take, for example, the ethical dilemmas posed by modern technology. With the advent of AI, genetic engineering, and other advancements, we face moral questions that Descartes could never have anticipated. Yet his emphasis on reasoned decision-making offers a way forward. How do we decide when to intervene in nature, or when to use technology to alter the course of human life? The answer, according to Descartes, lies in our ability to reason carefully and consider the long-term consequences of our actions. In a world where ethical decisions are increasingly complex and often have far-reaching implications, the need for reasoned reflection and careful deliberation has never been more important. In fact, one of the most important lessons we can take from Descartes is the idea that we must continually engage in self-reflection. In his day, this was embodied in the practice of doubt, constantly questioning our assumptions and beliefs to ensure that we are not deceived by falsehoods. In our own time, this might look like questioning the narratives we are told, whether by the media, by society, or even by ourselves. Descartes' philosophy urges us to pause, step back, and ask ourselves, what do we truly know? What do we believe? How do we know what is true? And, ultimately, how do we live a life that is grounded in wisdom and reason? As we navigate our own lives, perhaps the most profound lesson from Descartes is this: while we may not control everything around us, we always have control over how we think, how we reason, and ultimately, how we choose to live. In an age that often seems dominated by uncertainty, rapid change, and external pressures, Descartes' philosophy reminds us that the one thing we can control and the one thing that ultimately shapes our lives is our own capacity for reasoned reflection. The ability to pause, question, and choose wisely remains as vital today as it was in Descartes' time. Descartes' philosophy, with its emphasis on doubt, reason, and the mind-body distinction, continues to be a cornerstone of modern thought. Whether we are grappling with questions of consciousness, ethics, or the nature of reality itself, his ideas provide a framework for critical thinking that remains relevant in the contemporary world. As we continue to confront the complexities of modern life, Descartes' insistence on the importance of reason and reflection serves as a powerful reminder that, while we may not control the world around us, we always have the power to shape our own thoughts, beliefs, and actions. And in this, we find the true essence of freedom. And there you have it, folks, a deep dive into the incredible world of René Descartes and his revolutionary contributions to philosophy. From radical skepticism to his groundbreaking theories on the mind-body connection, Descartes' work continues to challenge and inspire us to this day. As we reflect on his journey, remember this: the true essence of Descartes' philosophy is not about accepting things at face value. It's about questioning everything, doubting everything, and building a foundation of knowledge that you can trust. It's about taking control of your mind and your decisions, not letting the world around you dictate your thoughts or actions. In today's fast-paced, information-driven world, we need more than ever to remember the power of reasoned reflection. Descartes teaches us that we may not have control over everything that happens around us, but the one thing we can control is how we think, how we reason, and how we choose to live. That is the ultimate form of freedom, and it's something that we can all tap into. I hope this video has inspired you to take a step back and think critically about your beliefs, your actions, and your place in the world. So, how are you going to use Descartes' radical skepticism to shape your own life? What will you question? And what will you choose to believe? If you found value in today's discussion, don't forget to like this video, share it with friends or anyone who could use a little philosophical perspective, and subscribe to the channel for more. And if you're feeling generous, hit that super thanks button. Your support means the world to me and helps keep this content coming. As always, thank you for being part of this journey. Until next time, keep questioning, keep thinking, and keep growing.